to this workshop, to this presentation. Today our presenter is Friedel Wolff. He's working in Translate.org in South Africa. He's a member and a developer of the African Network Localization. He's a really nice guy. I think you will have a really good time. I think I will let him to your presentations. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. It's been a very nice week so far. I know I complained a lot about the weather, but actually otherwise it was very nice so far. So thank you also for your hospitality and the nice conversations we've had already. Today you might have seen the little poster. I'll be talking about two main things. The first is the African Network for Localization, who we are and what we want to do and what we've done already. And the second thing I'll be talking about is the localization tools that we have developed in South Africa. And I'll try to give a little bit more detail there. I've already had some questions about some of that, and I understand that you're using it in one of your lab sessions, one of our tools and so on. And I just forgot his name. Who was the lecturer I just spoke to from software engineering?
JJ.
Yes, he said he had some things that he also wanted to discuss and so on. So I hope I can tell you a few interesting things about it, and hopefully that you will have some interesting ideas of your own or feedback from your own experience maybe. So first I'll be talking about ANLoc, and after a short break we can talk a little bit about our tools. I'm not going to talk a lot about my company, Translate.org.za, but a little bit about us might be interesting for you to understand where we are coming from. Our main goal as a non-profit organization is to empower South African languages in the world of technology. Now, basically that means localization, but initially there were quite a few other things necessary. So we have one language that uses a few unusual diacritic signs that are not present in almost any fonts in the world. So we extended a few fonts to have all of those diacritic characters. We created a South African keyboard layout to be able to type all South African languages easily in one layout. It's not a rocket science really, but it didn't exist. Translators were, and still today sometimes I meet some translators printing something out, going afterwards with a pen and putting in all the diareses and dots and things by hand. And of course for us doing software localization, that's not really interesting. We can't do that. For locales, we created all the locales necessary for South African languages, mostly in Linux and OpenOffice and a few other systems that needed that. Is everyone familiar with what a locale is? You know, the regional parameters for running software. So already now for some 8 years or something, all of our languages are represented in Linux systems. We've developed some spell checkers. It's an ongoing effort, obviously, also looking at things like hyphenation, patterns for word processing and desktop publishing and things like that. And some terminology developments and translation tools, which is what I'll be talking about a bit later, so I'm not going to expand on that now. This is where I come from. I live just about there, and Solomon lives somewhere. Somewhere. Am I right? Well, he comes from there. I'm always I'm hoping to change a few of your perceptions maybe about Africa, or at least to perhaps give you a new view on what some of the issues are happening there in the localization space. That's why I thought I'll start with Africa, with South Africa on top. It just makes me happy. Okay, sorry, I'm finished now. Africa, you might know, it's the second biggest continent in terms of geographic area and second most populous, way after Asia. I think it's not even close, but it's not small. It's the most poor and it's the most underdeveloped. And I think we've all seen pictures on television of poverty and hardship and things, and it's a thing that even we associate it with Africa and so on. And I think we all understand sort of that in at least some things that technology can help with a lot of those things. You might have heard about how people implemented text messaging systems on phones to inform farmers of weather predictions and how that helped them increase their productivity on farms or their yield. Or people would have systems whereby they're just reminded automatically of their medication, the treatment for AIDS and things like that. Now it was able to do quite a lot of things where someone had the insight and know-how to implement some technological solution. I don't believe that technology is the solution for everything, but I do believe it's a solution for quite a few interesting things. In terms of languages, about 2,000 languages, depending on who you ask. They say a language is a dialect with an army. Have you heard that? No. So a language is a dialect with an army. So a dialect is a dialect without an army. That's the only difference between a dialect and a language. But some people like to believe they have a good definition of what exactly is a language. In Africa, that's not always very clear. Is something a language? Is it a language group, language family? Are they close enough that we handle them as one language in localization? There are lots of questions there. And I don't think anyone has answered them. We are currently translating some software into a language known in the ISO language tables as Songhai languages. So ISO decided this is a language group, but the translator said no, he doesn't want to translate in one of the specific ones. He wants to translate into the cluster, or whatever you want to call that. Now, who am I to know better than he does? Same thing is happening in Ghana, where the main language is called Twi by the local population, but basically the other variants, according to some, are mostly spelling differences and orthographic differences. They can be handled as the same language. And while almost no software localization is being done, maybe it's interesting to look at ways of reaching more people. Anyway, so lots of people there, quite a few large languages, 15 languages with more than 10 million speakers. So to give you an idea, Danish, about 6 million speakers, Finnish, about the same, and I think Swedish is about 10 million speakers. I don't know, can someone confirm that, if that's what I remember. So those three Scandinavian languages are languages that we expect in any proper global website to be represented, and any multilingual product. Yet in Africa we have many languages that are that big, much bigger even. One of them are usually well represented in localization. Any ideas of which one that is?
Afrikaans.
No. French? Arabic. Yeah, so Arabic is actually a humongous language in Africa, and it's a native language of many people. It's not just a colonial language, it's actually spoken by many people. So that's one of them, but for the rest, mainly it's only here and there that, at least in commercial ventures, are supporting Swahili, Afrikaans. Now you would have seen some of the latest language interface packs from Microsoft. I think cover a few languages of Nigeria and South Africa, about 3, 4, 5. But to give you just a more idea of what does the tail look like, about 200 languages with more than 500,000 speakers. So those are small, but we're talking about quite a few people here. And I mean, yeah, it's quite a lot of languages then that remain. So we're talking about 1,800 that are not that big. So there are quite a few interesting things there in terms of languages. So the technical stuff that I'm sure many of you are interested in, basically there are not locales, there are a few, but mainly if you want to now start authoring your document and you want to say, alright, it's in this language, your language won't be on the list. If you want to go to Wikipedia in your language, the situation is a little bit better, but still many would be missing. If you want to, in Windows, there are only about, I'll estimate now, but about 20 African languages covered in Windows 7. But you can actually select as your system locale. So if we're producing software in other languages, actually the user can't even configure their system to give the indication that they want their own date formats and things like that. So there's still a huge amount of things that needs to be done. Keyword layouts, big problem. People can't type their own languages. Quite a problem actually. Think about it for a moment. If you can't type your language, how do you do localization? How do you write a letter? So a lot of the problems have to do with extended Latin ranges. So a lot of the languages, especially in West Africa, are using the Latin script, but with quite a variety of extra characters used or diacritics. Then as soon as you've typed it, you might see that it doesn't display anyway, or it might not display nicely. So font coverage is quite a bit of a problem. Not a big problem. but it is a problem. I mean, we were talking about font issues in India yesterday. That was a much